I figured I'd bring you guys another patch video. I got a lot of good feedback on this video before, and I wanted to kind of bring it to attention again and do it for the Zul patch. So obviously Zul is now in the game, new character, uh, Diablo 2, a Necromancer. There's a lot of hype behind him. People were uncertain if he'd be insane or if he'd be underpowered. I've had a few days now to play with him. I've played a lot of Hero League actually in these past few days since his release. My first day playing him, I was uncertain about him, but the more I've played him, the more I've understood his mechanics. His numbers are actually insane, and he is going to impact the meta as far as Hero League goes. Obviously, if you guys have followed my tier list, this is based solely on Hero League. In competitive play, Zul is probably going to be a pick that's banned, so things change, but in Hero League, it's kind of every man for himself. So that's how my kind of tier list is built. It's built around that sort of system. So I'm just going to dive right into this. I also want to throw this out there. If there's anybody who is good at video editing and would like to make an intro for my YouTube videos, I know that I don't use a lot of editing for my videos, and I apologize for that. But if you would like to send me some sorry about that, I just want to close Skype. If you'd like to send me something, you can message me at my Twitch or my Twitter, which are both on the screen currently right now, right here. And I would love for something to have something to put at the beginning of my YouTube videos. So I know that's something that a lot of people have brought up to me. But yeah, so I'm just going to dive right into it. A lot hasn't changed, but there are some things that have changed. I've kind of wrote the bigger changes for me personally down here. There's obviously a lot of other things that have gone on. One being like Murden is, I think right now, the best warrior, but I'm just going to come down here and just kind of bring the big ones up. So the first one is Chin. I think Chin is really good right now. A lot of the big damage dealers, a lot of the heroes that people are picking, the Li Mings, the Zagaras, even some of the warriors, Joanna, etc. A lot of these thralls and stuff. A lot of these heroes do not have good CC to handle Chin. So if you draft him in a good spot, he can be pretty effective. He's also a great solo laner. So he beats some of the stronger Zagaras and thralls that a lot of people are having problem with and losing lanes on D-Shire and maps like that. So I think he's a very good pick, especially with the Rehgar and the Tassadar picks that are pretty heavily chosen right now. The next pick that's kind of going off of that, and another thing with Chin is he's very good against melee assassins and melees in general, is Brightwing. So I have brought Brightwing actually up to tier 1, which is kind of insane, but I think I like her there. She's, again, just like Chin, she does extremely well against top picks, Zul, Thrall, some of these melees. And she also has the Global Soak, which is a big deal in Hero League. Not only does she have Global Soak, but she has Global Pressure. So a lot of the times it feels like people on your team get out of position and they might overextend. And as Brightwing, you can be there to save them and potentially turn a fight. So I think Brightwing is in a great place for Hero League right now. She also has a good hard CC. And her protect or like magic resist shield at 13 is really good against Mealing and some of these other mages. The other one is Thrall. I had Thrall at tier 2, but I think I finally like him as tier 1 in the second slot. So the reason for that is not only his laning phase. So Thrall is one of the few heroes that can dominate in a laning phase. He also has an incredibly impactful ultimate in Sundering. So if you get a good Sundering off in a Hero League game, you can just win the fight outright for your team, which is I think one of the reasons I've brought him up so high on my list. So I've been playing with him, and I haven't had really any issues. I don't think I've lost the Thrall game within the past 2 weeks. Obviously, I'm not just spamming Thrall, but if I wanted to gain lots of MMR, I think he would be one of the few heroes that I'd be selecting a lot. And the two downfalls are Jaina. She still has very good wave clear, but she dies to a lot of these melees. Obviously, Illidan's and the Thralls are starting to show up a lot more often. And Lunara is another one. She was higher. She was one rank. I think she was tier 1, and now I've moved her to tier 2. She's still high specialist for me, but she's not where she used to be because of Zul. So let's go actually over the list. I might not talk about everything just to save some time, but I will dive into some of the things that I think are important for this current patch. More importantly, the tier 1s and basically the tier 2s. So tier 1 warriors, I've moved Murden to the number 1 slot. So I think as of right now, Murden is probably the best warrior in solo queue again. I had doubts about him when they changed Avatar. You can still take Avatar, but Haymaker is actually pretty effective in Hero League if you have a good support behind you. So Haymaker is really good at isolating targets. You can get picks with it, and I think it's a good effective ult in Hero League. It kind of gets people out of position, the same that Falstad Gus does. So you can go Haymaker, you can still go Avatar, but I think he's my go-to warrior at the moment. The next one would be ETC, who's obviously another great CC warrior. Murd and ETC have kind of dominated heroes for a while now. A good Mosh can win you a game. But the thing about ETC is he doesn't deal a lot of damage outside of his Mosh, or I guess his slide and his W. He doesn't really deal damage. So if your team isn't there to follow you up, then you're going to have a hard time. The good news is a lot of the higher picked heroes right now are very AoE, burst, sustaining, good follow-up, so good heroes for ETC. The third warrior who's still in tier 1, but at the very end of it, is Diablo. I still think the effectiveness of having the souls and resurrection is good in Hero League. Trading 1 for 1 when you respawn is a great mechanic, and it really punishes the other team, especially when it comes to a late game situation. So going to the assassins, I still think Li Ming, although I don't have S tier anymore, I still think she is the best assassin for Hero League. Just again, going back to my old video, like the reset mechanic is insane, and the comeback mechanic in her is also insane. It's still all there. There's tons of builds you can go, tons of different ways you can go with her. She's still a great character. So I still have her as a number 1. Again, going to the Thrall pick, insane lane, really good damage, high burst, high sustain. He has CC. He's just a good overall hero. He can cause your team to fight. He can get your team to disengage. He's just really good in Hero League. A lot of people understand his mechanic, so that's really good, right? If I sunder, you follow, and people can easily digest that. There's not a lot of secrets, unlike Falstad, our next hero, where it's a little bit more difficult. Do they engage? If I gust, what happens, right? But that is why Falstad is there. Gust is still a great mechanic. It can save people that are caught. It can also, get a good engage for your team if you gust them towards your team, or you always can gust them under cores and save bases. And there's just a lot of cool things that Falstad does. His global is also incredibly effective. If you've ever watched me play Falstad, I love to fly to other lanes and just get free kills. 2v1s with Falstad in the mix, it normally ends up bad for the 1. So he's a great hero still for Hero League. And then the fourth is Greymane. And I talked about him last week. And obviously, if you guys follow the tournament this past weekend and really all the scenes, Europe, Korea, us, I don't think China's been playing much. But Greymane is a big pick right now. He's got a lot of sustained damage through his grenade and his auto attacks. But the most important mechanic is obviously the burst that he brings to a team fight. If the other team gets weak enough, Greymane can clean up a lot of kills. So he was also a really good pick against Rehgar because Ancestral takes a few seconds to pop. And normally Ancestral is cast when the target is weak. So Greymane kind of punishes that mechanic, which is why I think he came up a lot. So we'll go to the specialist next. Obviously the tier 1 right now is Zul. He's insane wave clear. He's got good push, really good sustain. He's got good damage. He's got a good ult. His E can get you picks early game. Yeah, he's just a really good hero. His numbers right now are just a bit much, and because of that, I think he's in an insane place. If they tweak his numbers, he might get a little worse, but I still think he'll be effective. But the fact that you don't even have to use your scythe to clear a wave with Zul, you can just smack it with your W and you'll still clear it, is just insane. He doesn't have mana issues. Again, he has a 2-second root that can't be dodged. And his two ultimates are both pretty effective. So I think he's a hero that definitely is changing up the game a little bit, slowing down some of the melees that are auto attack based in the range. I think, yeah, he's a good addition to the meta. And then, obviously Zagara, she's always going to be pretty high as long as they don't change her numbers. She's got a good laning phase. If you hit a maul, you can win a game. She gives vision with her creep. Yeah, there's not really much else to say about Zagara. So the supports, Rehgar is no longer S tier. He's not a first pickable anymore. He can still be picked. I think he should be picked as the top support, but I think there's a lot of flexibility with support now. But if you want to gain MMR, I still think Rehgar is your pick. The reasons for it is he can jungle, which is important. He can push. He's good at sustaining teams. And now with the new totem build, which was the other build, you don't really go lightning shield build anymore, but the totem build, having that 90-second or that 90% slow is good sometimes for getting picks. So I would still say he's the number one, but the number two for me right now is Brightwing, and I talked about it a little bit before. Globals, the global pressure, being able to fight across the map when the other person has all-ined your teammate and turning that into a kill is great. Not only that, but you can soak off lanes. Maybe the other team's 10, you can soak the top lane and get 10 for your team and blink in on Sky Temple. Polymorph is great against gray mains and thralls and Zuls that are getting in your team's face. Obviously the spell shield is really good. A lot of the it's like a CC meta sort of ish that's come back. So if Zul roots your teammate and then everyone follows it up, if you throw your little dust spell shield at 13 on them, you might be able to save them. They might die, but if their whole team doesn't really commit onto that target, then they can potentially get out. So I really like Brightwing. And then my third one is Medic. This is a weird one for me because it seems like it shouldn't be good, but the meta has changed so much in Hero League that Medic is actually in an okay place. A lot of people have a hard time killing her, and if your team has the right picks, then she's actually not bad. So if your team ever has double frontline, then Medic's pretty good. So you can get protected from whatever's happening on the team, like within the team fight, and just heal people forever. People in Hero League also have this is really good for like rank 20 to 10. People have a hard time targeting her, and if the other team doesn't target Medic, then you win the fight. So she is really good for that reason. So I brought Medic up to the very bare end of tier 1. Essentially, she's niche if those other two picks aren't taken in some cases. So that's my tier 1s. Those are picks that you're probably going to see a lot in a lot of your games. A lot of people are going to be picking these heroes right now, I'm assuming, and they've been picking these heroes in my hero, or at least I've been picking these heroes in Hero League a lot. So we'll go to the tier 2s. Tier 2s, obviously I have them titled. It still helps your team towards victory. These are all strong picks. These are all your fill-ins, as I guess you could say. So, drafts usually work with 2 top tier picks, a third tier 1 or tier 2, and then a couple tier 2s that kind of fill out your team. So Warriors, Stitches, still up there. He got nerfed a little bit, but I think his slam build can be used effectively in team fights and Hero League. If the other team doesn't focus you, which a lot of the time they don't, then it actually works really well. And Hook obviously can get you kills if you hit a target that's not ready for it and your team follows it up. Bio is still really good, and Stitches has built-in sustain. These are all good mechanics to have on a hero. The only problem is he doesn't really have any form of CC or engage. So if you miss your hooks, a lot of the time your team doesn't know what to do with Stitches. So that is his only problem. And if he gets focused when you go slam build, then he has a hard time of surviving. So he's not very good in a solo warrior spot unless he has a good follow-up like a Sonya or a Thrall paired with him. So I still have him high, but he's not something that I would just go to all the time. The other warrior, it's very similar, is Chin. Again, he's great in laning against a lot of the better laners. Zagara, Thrall come to mind. They have a hard time beating Chin. Chin can win lanes. If you go the barrel build, which is the build that I've been going, you can get picks and team fights very easily. It counters a lot of kind of mechanics like ETC and Diablo, a lot of these stuns. Barrel keeps you immune to them. I just think, yeah, Chin's a strong pick right now, actually, if the other team doesn't have a good comp against it. Next one is Leoric. Again, really good against fatty warriors. So if you're against the Stitches or you're a Joanna or something that's low mobility that you can stick on, Leoric's good. He's also good paired with Falstad or, entombing a target and isolating it for follow-up is always a good thing with Leoric. It's one of his best mechanics. Also, he can die and come back, which is a really good mechanic. The last warrior is Sonya, which is sad for me to say, but she is very good as a second pick, but she is not a first pick because if your team doesn't follow up and the other team counters her by picking strong damage or something, then she has a hard time. But if the comp that you have is good with her, let's say your team doesn't have solo Tyrande healer, right, and your team has medic healer, then Sonya is a great pick because the medic pairs very well with her. So she's still very pickable. She still does a lot of damage in Hero League, but she needs lots of support to be super effective. And that's usually not what we're trying to go for here when we pick for Hero League. So Assassins, Tier 2, Zeratul is the top there. VP is still super effective if used right. He's a pick that, if in the right hands, can get you very far. But if you're using him suboptimally, then he might not be the best pick. So this is one for, I'll just say, the higher ranked players, the 20s to 30s. I would maybe avoid him. Maybe you could go the Shadow Assault build, but make sure that their team doesn't have a counter for it. If you hit it, you need to kill something before they kill you. So I will just throw that out there as a public announcement for Zeratul. But I think if you can find the picks and find the rotations early and get your team ahead far enough, then he can still be a really good pick. Same goes for Jaina. I talked about it before. She has a hard time against a lot of these top tier 1 picks in these melees. So she, if Jaina is against Chin, then Chin kind of walks all over her. So she's struggling because of that. The meta is kind of shifting to a melee heavy meta, and she does okay if she can be protected, but Hero League, you don't normally get protected. Which is why exactly the person beside of her, the other mage, Kel'Thas, is having such a hard time. He also, super effective mage, but if he isn't protected, he can't kill people the same way he used to be able to with his 1.5 stun. So he's still a strong pick if you're very good with him. He's good wave clear, obviously, but it's hard to take him when you can take the other melee or the other assassins. Same goes for Raynor. Again, another niche pick. Good against ETC, good against Leo, Sonya, these, low mobility warriors that aren't going to be able to stick, that you can just attack a lot. So Raynor is there on the assassin tier 2. Again, he would be a 4th, 5th pick. And Vala, another 4th, 5th pick. If you need good AoE, if they have low heals like Tyrandas, Uthers, Vala does well there with her multi-shot and her strafe. They have a hard time healing all that AoE damage. She also brings, AoE CC. So going to the specialist, Lunara, again, same sort of boat that Vala is in. She's great at, still putting out a lot of poke, but it's so hard to take her over Zul and Zagara. She's still, I guess, good if you need the CC. So she's still a pick, but she's going to be a 4th, 5th pick again. She's going to be a 3rd, 4th, 5th pick. Hammer, I just like Hammer in Hero League. I think she's punishes bad players the same way Medic does. If the other team doesn't get to you, then you can just shoot everybody, and players have a hard time of just saying, okay, let's engage on her. Let's see. The next one would be Sylvanas? Yeah, okay, so Sylvanas is the next hero that we're going to be going over. Sylvanas is not where she used to be. She used to be really, really strong, um, but she has gotten a lot weaker because of the other heroes, right? Like, the Zul is kind of what Sylvanas was. She just doesn't have enough damage right now, and her silence doesn't do enough, so I would probably stay away from Sylvanas at the moment. But, if your team literally has 0 wave clear and the silence is really good on a follow-up, like a Zagarma or... I guess her other problem is she just doesn't work very well with a lot of the heroes that are in. So, but, if you have a Leoric or a Sylvanas, or, a Zagarma, something that you can go off of, then I guess she's a fine pick. And Cho'Gall's another one that is good if you have 2 players that are good at it. This is one that if you're duo with somebody, I would suggest that you can take. Then we'll go to tier 2 support. So Tyrande, still good in Hero League. Mark and follow-up CC is always going to be good. One-shotting somebody before a fight happens is something that can be really strong if used correctly. The second one is Monk. Again, he's kind of the same way with Tyrande. If you can follow up your teammates with like a good 7-sided, then you can just win a team fight. He does objectives really well and bosses really well because of his sustain. And his W is actually pretty good sustain for all the melee heroes right now. So Monk is a really good pick if your team needs a Monk and can work with a Monk. If your team's a lot of range, then Monk is a weaker pick, right? And the third one is Tassadar. I love Tassadar. He's one of my favorite heroes, but I still put him in this spot. He makes me nervous in Hero League. It only takes a bad fight from your team to lose a game, and Tassadar can't stop a bad fight from happening. He can try to engage really good fights, but he's not very good at making bad fights happen or stopping bad fights from happening. So that's why I have him here. I still think he's really good if paired with the right heroes, like a heavy melee like a Sonya or a Thrall or an Illidan, but I don't really like just taking him and saying, okay team, now you choose, right? I'm not going to really go over the tier 4s. I'll go over the tier 3s and then, yeah. So tier 3 is the niche picks. This is going even deeper than the tier 2s. So, we have a Nubarak as a warrior. He's really good if your team needs a little more follow-up. Like, I have a hard time saying I would pick him over Thrall, but if they have Thrall, maybe you pick him instead with the Muradin. The Beetles do okay against Li Ming and Stitches. Webb, his Cocoon is good against Cho'Gall, so it can be used effectively there. I'm actually going to change this because I like Joanna a little bit more than Anub. Yeah. So I like Joanna a little bit more. So Joanna, again, more situational. They made it so her W doesn't kill minions on the map. So her effectiveness on Infernal Shrines got nerfed, but Knight Takes Pawn is still a good talent. Wave Clear is still good. She can still shield to engage. She's tanky. She has her blinds, obviously, which do well against triple range and things like that. So she's still one of the few solo tank heroes. But if you can get one of the other 5 above her, I would suggest them over her. But she still can do well in certain spots. Tyrael, another one. I think that little DJ Khaled. I think that if you pick him in the right spot, and Sanctification is effective, then he's good. But it's hard to take him as a solo warrior for your team, because a lot of the time you'll take Tyrael and then your team won't take warrior or take melee or something, right? And then you're in a comp with Tyrael, Zul, Li Ming or something, and there's just not a lot of synergy there. So I still have him as tier 3. Arthas, he's another one that he's just fun, and he can be effective if you use him well. He's just the only problem with him is he's not a lot of bang for your buck. You can just play other heroes worse and do better, like Diablo, for example. You can be a subpar player and be effective, whereas Arthas, if you're a subpar player, your effectiveness levels might be altered. Assassin's Illidan, again, going back to like the picks just above, you really need teams dedicated to these heroes, otherwise they're not effective at all. If you have like a Tass and a Rehgar, then Illidan's actually pretty good. Or like an Abathur, you're duoed with someone who's playing Abba and you're playing Illidan. It's not too bad. But if the other team has picks like Murdens and Sonias to deal with you, then your effectiveness is depleted. So this is again 4/5 picks, comp rounders. Kerrigan, she's one that I'll just pick because a lot of the time, luckily for me, if I take Kerrigan, people are like, oh, it's Mac, he's playing Kerrigan, let's pick follow-up. But, if you first pick Kerrigan and your team takes a bunch of, like Zagaras and Falstads and stuff, no follow-up CC, no follow-up burst, then you're going to be in a bad spot. So I would suggest avoiding her as a first pick and taking her later on. Nova, I just want to delete Nova. I don't even know why she's here. I'm going to actually put her down here. She's just really bad right now, sadly. She was one of my favorites too. But yeah, so I'll just get rid of her altogether. My next is Abathur. I actually like Abathur right now. There's a lot of good clone targets, like Greymane and Li Ming, I think are really good clone targets. So he's really good, but the problem is if your team doesn't take those clone targets, then you have nothing to clone and your effectiveness is hurt because of it. So be wary when you take him, but you can take him and win. Same goes for Vikings. These are picks that you can take and play well, but if your team doesn't play along with you, then you're going to have trouble. So, again, going to Vikings, they're really good at triple soaking, but if the other team's just crushing your team while you're triple soaking, then you're going to have a bad time. Murky, another one. I mean, thing about him is Li Ming and Zul are both really good against him. He's an okay solo laner on like heavy solo lane maps like D Shire. So very niche. And then same with the supports. So Uther, really good against burst, but he doesn't have a lot of sustain healing. And Malf, really good at AoE, but doesn't have a lot of burst healing. So these are just two heroes that, in the right spot are good, but are bad a lot of the time in Hero League. And then tier 4s, again, I'm not even going to talk about them. So, yeah, that's it for the Zul batch. If you guys did enjoy it, please make sure to throw a like on my video or subscribe to my YouTube. You can also check me out at my Twitter, which is not this anymore. Or my Twitch, which is right here. So I appreciate the continued support. Again, if you are good at making an intro, I would really appreciate it if you would do so for me. Or just message me about it and we can talk about it. I have a song in mind and everything, but I'd like to start editing my videos a little bit more. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below or just come to my stream and say what's up. So but that's it. So cheers guys, thanks again. All right, bye bye.